welcome to the lecture 42. Last day we discussed the background of the urban development programs in India, and based on that background we have learned that it is very important to at least to have a knowledge that what are the current urban development programs are going on and what are the provisions and the tasks required under those urban development programs. Out of that we are going to share the informations about Amrut, about Smart City Mission, about Swachh Bharat Mission, about the Hriday and few other programs. So, today we will start the discussion. Today we will have a discussion on Amrut. So, you know that in 2015 Government of India has launched this program which is the full form of Amrut is Atal Mission and Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, in short is Amrut. So, Amrut is a revised version of JNNURM which started 2004. So, more or less the provisions of the Amrut is the same, only exception is the waste management part. Waste management part is excluded from the Amrut mission, whereas the other basic infrastructures are included in Amrut like the JNNURM, and Amrut is also a reform linked program. And second is that under JNNURM, city development plan was the essential and the mandatory task which was required to be done by the urban local bodies, and here only the state level action plan and the service level infrastructure plan which is required to be done by the urban local bodies and state government, and that is the basic difference of the Amrut and the JNNURM program. Now, in Amrut the state level infrastructure, the service level infrastructure plan, in short it is a SLIP, it is to be done at the urban local bodies level, and all the SLIPs from all urban local bodies has to be integrated and combined and together and to be developed and a state level plan which they are calling a state level state annual action plan, that has to be done at the state level and that has to be submitted to the central government level. So, let us see the provisions of the SAP and the SLIP. So, I will just mention the salient keywords so that you can recall the points. Now, they are calling it as a state level state annual action plan, bracket in short it is SAP. So, SAP is basically state level service improvement plan indicating the year wise improvement, and basic building block for SAP is reserve service level improvement plan. I tell you another background that before the Amrut, Government of India they started another program called service level benchmarking, in short SLB. So, objective of the service level benchmarking was to benchmark each and every service for urban local bodies. For example, they categorized each type of municipalities, and based on their size and the character it was mentioned that which type of municipalities are going to serve or going to supply what categories of service. For example, bigger municipalities and the corporations, they will provide 200 LPCD water for the common citizen, whereas a small municipality they can serve 100 LPCD. So, something like that. I mean, they have not only the amount, they have that time they benchmarked the amount and the frequency of the service and the amount of service and the mode of the service for each and every category. For example, water supply, solid waste management, sanitary sewerage and sanitary management, drainage, everything. So, similarly that has been integrated in the SAP and SLIP, and that is why they are calling service level improvement plan, in short it is SLIP. So, they have basic objective of this preparation of the SAP is to provide an overview about the project and funding requirement, and in turn cover all households in the state. So, it is the state wise allocation and the projection of a particular subject, particular service or few services together. It has two phases. The first phase is the preparation of the service level improvement plan which is done at the ULB level, and second stage it is the annual action plan which is done at the state level. So, at the ULB level it is the assess the service level is the first stage, identify the project components, estimation of the project cost and prioritization of the project component. So, if you see the keywords like assessment, identification, estimation, prioritization, these are the tasks by the urban local bodies. Next, at the state level, it is the task of the state government to make a aggregated document, that is the combination of all the slips received from the urban local bodies and the considerations related to principles of prioritization, importance of the operation and management, financing of project and execution are to be taken. Why this is important? Because in JNNURM and the earlier programs we have seen that you can plan for 100 projects, but unless the project does not consider the operation and management aspect, does not consider the implementation aspect, the ultimate outcome in terms of the project execution is minimal in spite of spending much public money. So, that has to be considered at the very beginning in the in this planning framework. Now, in the phase 1, as I have told you that it will be done at the urban local bodies level. So, objective is to cover all households with water supply and sewerage, including septage management, and it is done by urban local bodies as I have told. So, assessment will be done based on the data existing secondary and the primary data, and zone as the basic unit has to be taken, and here they are calling at census data 2011, or you can have some baseline survey at the urban local bodies level if there is any existing survey already done by MOUD, otherwise you can conduct your own survey. So, zone wise gap will be calculated, and based on that you have to project the requirement of your urban local bodies. Then what is the plan of action to bridge the gap? Okay. So, that is required to be done. So, separate exercise for water supply and sewerage will be carried out. Now, you may see that if the municipalities are smaller, they cannot afford a large water treatment plant or sewerage treatment plant. They can take the strategy to combine a cluster with other local bodies and make a combined plan. So, those kind of strategies could be there, and so one is at the urban local bodies as zone wise strategies, one at the urban local bodies as city wise strategies, how they can bridge the gap. Then before coming to the final strategy, have you examined the alternatives, like what could be other alternatives in terms of technology, in terms of the land and the location, in terms of the finance, that what could be other alternatives, especially one size fit all approach will not work. So, every urban local bodies, every municipality, they should come with their own unique plan of action, unique strategy, that is the message. Then estimation of the cost, the estimate the total requirement of the fund for achieving universal coverage of water supply, and that has to be calculated. Then the cost including operation management will be based on the estimates, and that has to be presented, and the technical financial norms as prescribed by JNNURM will apply to Amrut mission as well, and contingencies or cost escalation will not be permissible. So, this is very important. So, this prohibits that, or this mandates that there should be no delay in terms of the project execution, because if you delay the project, if the project is delayed, there will be no cost escalation or no contingency included in the project funding. So, incomplete project will not be entertained. Then prioritization is very important factor. Now, how to prioritize the projects when in a municipality there are many projects. So, let us see how, let me see the principles of the prioritization. So, there are provisions of out of box thinking and the conditionality out of box thinking in terms of the benchmark, in terms of the reforms, in terms of the promoting new technologies or low cost estimating. So, these are the, and conditionality based on the land and the other prerequisite that has to be considered maintained in the projectization. The resilience has to be considered during the slip preparation. Financing has to be done in considering the capital cost, when an operation maintenance cost, and the finance has to be identified. For example, for few projects there could be finance available from the state government, international agencies, or the state state government, central government, or from their own source. So, that has to be identified. Unless you identify the various finance options, the projects may not be considered. So, those are important element. So, there could be innovative funding sources like say tax increment financing TIF, even though few municipalities they are yet to come out with those kind of proposals. Then reforms. So, as we discussed during JNNURM that there are reforms, two types of reforms are there, mandatory and optional reform, and these two reforms will be there at ULB level and state level. So, those reforms which was being followed at the urban local bodies level will be followed as usual, and with a greater emphasis, because reform is very important for the urban development and urban governance. So, which will be consolidated at this stage, which they have already started by the state or the urban local bodies, and if the funds are required to implement the reform, they can also be accessed from either from the Amrut budget or from the state funding or from the capacity building of the urban development program. In some earlier lectures, we discussed about the capacity building of the urban local bodies. Within this CBUD program, the basic objective of this program is to enhance the capability of the municipal officials in terms of their knowledge and skills, so that they can make the projects under this scheme, make the plan under this program and execute the projects, so that they can also make the project formulation, that is the project report, detailed project report. Okay. So, let us see the contents of the state annual action plan. Now, once the plan is formulated at the local bodies level, considering the existing situation of the service, the prioritization, reform, everything, then that has to be integrated and combined at the state level, which is called as state annual action plan. Now, you just see the contents. One is the checklist with consolidated state level annual action plan, then what were the considerations and the major step by the local bodies and the state, then breakup of total allocation in Amrut, sector wise proposed total project, breakup of total funding, fund sharing, city wise project proposed, master plan of all projects, sector wise breakup of the consolidated investment, ULB wise source of fund, state level fund for achieving service level benchmark, etc. And also it is included that administrative and other expenses are included. So, let us now discuss the principles of prioritization in the SAP, how you are supposed to prioritize your project based on the criteria. So, one is the prioritization of the urban local bodies funding will be done after consultation with local MPs, mayors and commissioners of concerned local bodies. That means there is a scope for consultations with all levels of elected representation and the functionaries. Second is that prioritization will be decided based on the inter ULB allocation, based on the gap analysis and financial strength of the urban local bodies. So, if urban local bodies having better financial strength, definitely the priority should be given to those urban local bodies who have lesser financial strength. Then financial weakest local bodies can be financed to a greater extent, that is what I told. So, urban local bodies with a high proportion of urban poor could receive a higher share. So, that is another very important aspect. Then potential smart cities will be given first preferences. The cities which is identified as the smart cities, in the next lecture I will discuss about the smart cities, they will also get a share of the Amrut, because in the smart cities there are two parts. They may be first the one element within the core city they are developing as a area based development. So, other areas definitely the Amrut can help them to develop their infrastructure. So, that is the priority which is mentioned. So, state will send the SAP up to the 3 times to the central assistant. So, in this process they can send several times for their approval. So, different ULBs within a state may become entitled to different funding patterns, but the share of the central will be fixed and given as per the guidelines. So, these are the principles of the prioritization. Then importance of operation and maintenance we have already discussed, but just take few keywords like say user charges, which is a reform under the JNNURM and Amrut, and project cost, O&M cost will be considered, and cost recovery mechanism, and this should be at least for 5 years. These are the salient points or salient criteria which should be considered during the projectization of the SLEEP and the SAP. So, financing of the projects, the funding will be given in 3 installments, maximum share will be given by the central government, state contribution will not be less than 20%, and state and ULBs have to plan for the remaining resource regeneration from own source. The financial share of cities will vary across states. During the formulation of the SAP, how the residual financing is shared between the state, ULBs and any other source identified by the state. So, other sources has to be identified. So, SAP should only contain those projects where complete project cost is completely linked with the revenue source. So, this is very important that not only the funding requirement, unless the funding requirement is connected with the revenue generated at the local level from their own sources, that will not be considered, and every state government and urban local bodies level they should provide at least 20% of the total funding, and remaining the central government can consider for the funding. Similarly, there are few other points like they can consider the bonds, dates, all this kind of mechanism, and this can be dovetailed with other sectoral and financial programs of the government. This can be some of the elements could be under the regulation of the SEBI, and use of public private partnership PPP is much emphasized or prioritized or given encouraged. So, PPP should include appropriate state level agreements with strong citizens feedback, so that there could be PPPP, that is people public and private partnership model. Now, most of the state governments they have come up with a PPP policy which will enable the local government to collaborate with the public developer or private developer or private organizations to come up with the better projects for the urban infrastructure. So, PPP is very important resource or important elements where the state governments and the urban local body they have to take very judicious decision to select the private parties and to collaborate with them to make projects for the urban infrastructure. So, there are laid out procedures for approval of this SAP. So, just have a look, I am not reading all these stages, you can have a reading on your own time and you can understand. If you have any query you can ask me in the forum. So, with this I conclude this lecture. Next lecture will be smart city mission. Before I conclude, let me summarize very quickly. In this lecture we discussed briefly about the provisions and the actions, planning actions under the Amrut mission. Amrut mission stands for Atal mission for rejuvenation and urban transformation. It is basically an extension of the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, which is basically a reform linked urban development program. The Amrut mission covers mostly the urban infrastructures like water supply, sewerage, etc., and it mandates planning action at the urban local bodies level and state level. At the urban local bodies level, the planning action is called as SLEEP, Service Level Infrastructure Plan. Basically, it is the projected infrastructure requirement and the projectization for each and every infrastructure listed in the mission. Then all the SLEEPs from the urban local bodies and cities will have to be combined and integrated in a comprehensive manner, and a state level and action plan which is called as SAP. In short, it is state annual action plan which has to be done by the state government, and the SLEEP and SAP has to be done in a way where contribution by the state government and the urban local government has to be indicated very clearly, so that remaining amount can be considered by the central government, and the operation and maintenance has given much more weightage here. Prioritization based on some criteria and consideration has given also very important priorities. So, most of the state governments and the cities are now working under the Amrut. So, please visit your own state government's website and the urban local bodies website, and just try to understand that what are the projects they have undertaken, whether they have made the SLEEPs and the SAP already. If they have made, please have a look on all those planning documents so that you can get the better understanding. So, with this I conclude this lecture on the Amrut. Next day we will have a discussion on the smart city mission. So, thank you very much for attending this lecture.